Good morning. We're going to do a first impression sort of review here of the new Path of Exile 3.26 Secret of the Atlas League. Now, this is the fifth league that I've had the pleasure being a part of in the first expansion. And if you don't know what an expansion is, it's when it's typically joined by an expansion to the Atlas, new pinnacle bosses, etc. And I have to say it's been fairly enjoyable. However, there have been some issues on start that we need to address right away before we start talking about the mechanics, etc. If you currently look on Steam, it's going to have mixed reviews. This would be a little bit weird for Path of Exile because this is normally a very overwhelmingly loved type of game, or very positive on Steam. That is because there has been a fairly large amount of connection issues that have plagued the launch. From the beginning of the game, I was not even able to connect to the game because I was one of the unlucky people. There were me, Pox, guys, just to name a few, some of the people I just happened to be friends with all had the same issue where we literally could not connect to the game because of our unluckiness of being one of the accounts that just didn't have an authentication error. My girlfriend was able to play in the same house. There are people that were making second accounts and just being able to log in on the same computer and the same connection, just a different account. So for whatever reason, it was like a bunch of random people were just banned from actually playing the league. Now, there was that, but also on top of it, there was connection issues, which still seem to be happening while I was recording this video. I realized I got halfway through it and my microphone was muted, so I'm starting over again. And even during that, I had several lag outs and crashes just just while I was recording. Now, this, you could say this is related to skill issues of a computer or something like that, but there is a large amount of people actually experiencing this directly after the league update, when there was no issues, prior to that league update. And like I say, some people are affected, some people not quite as much. Here's a great example. It's lagging out right now. I'm just sitting in my hideout, not doing anything. And this is especially an issue on the start of the league, because if you're trying to sustain maps and it's closed now, maps are rolling you back when you got a very good drop. That's going to be a very negative experience for you. It'll be hard to sustain maps, etc. So all of that to just address, there is not really any ability for me to sort of just, hand wave some of these complaints. These were pretty legitimate technical issues with the launch of the game that was ongoing for multiple days. And so much so that they had to address it multiple times with posts, as well as actually push the race back. They're actually doing double rewards for it, so they're going to do a secondary race after these issues have been resolved. It's gotten a little bit better with the days, but yes, it is still absolutely seems to be some kind of issue. Now, let's talk about the actual mechanics, because there are a new mercenary mechanic in the game, which is actually really cool. I would put it this way. This is a very fun but very unbalanced mechanic, or I say specifically from sort of a hardcore type of mindset. Now, hardcore is a self-imposed difficulty, so I can't really use hardcore as like, oh, it needs to be balanced around this. I choose to have a limited style of account, but because I am hardcore, I specifically am having to understand that I can't really run this mechanic as much as I would like to, and I will show you why in just a moment. That aside, I am sure this is going to get rebalanced, because I'm seeing basically everybody get one shot by the same type of things. And I mean, you can have 6,000 HP, be very tanky character, and you can have a guy that doesn't even have that stacked of gear that can just literally walk into you and just one tap you out of nowhere in a way that no other mob on that map actually can. And because it's a league mechanic that is very common, because it is the new league, it is in basically every map and every act through the campaign, you're having a lot of people that are innately just running in and getting one tap by these types of things. So this is a early league balance issue. Guarantee you this is going to get hot fixed at some point. I think it was Ziggy D I was watching was saying maybe he thinks they just forgot about the travel skills or something like that to actually PvP balance them, and it's just completely unmitigated damage just going right through you. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm sure we're going to see something addressed to that. Now, outside of the getting one-shot thing, this is actually a very good mechanic for things like SSF. I'm also an SSF enjoyer, so like Iron Man or Solo Self-Found. I very much enjoy the ability to look at these mercenaries, and like I said, they show up in every act through the campaign, so you do have some of some of the people I'm seeing getting things like Tabula Rasas and getting a 6 link for free right at the start of the league, which is absolutely fantastic for them. And the reason is because at the lower levels, when these are spawning, there's not that many uniques in the pool. And if they happen to spawn with a unique, well, you might happen to have a pretty good little item on that character. And also, sometimes you can get good boots. So I got like Wonder Taps fairly early and just was able to solve some attribute problems, get a little bit of movement speed, etc. And you can get some really cool items on them, like your allies are regenerating life, mana, etc. Or, like this one, curses enemies on block, etc. And some of these can actually give you auras also. Like I have haste aura here, so it makes me move faster. And because I'm doing this, what I call the Sharknado spin to win build here, a cyclone effectively, it's just nice to have that little bit of extra movement speed, etc. So this is actually pretty cool. And again, it's doubly nice for solo self-found because they count as part of your party. So you get a little bit of a bonus in terms of drops because they happen to give you half of the bonus that a player would for being in your party. And it's just a very nice addition there. There's also something very hilarious which can happen, which is that a mercenary, it can be within 20 of your levels. So if I'm 42, I can have a 62 mercenary if I'm going through and leveling a second character in the campaign, which is exactly what I did. And I happen to get lucky and get a T0 unique drop. And because of the gym, it says 68, but a level 57 can wear this. So I had a 62 mercenary equipped with a 57 T0, 1300 damage unique maul, and that ended up looking a little something like this here, which is the mercenary is, it's so fast, look how much damage he's doing. This is in the campaign. When I'm leveling my next character, he's just absolutely railing these bosses. So that was super hilarious and fun to use, and I quite enjoyed that. They can also have currency in this little pouch right here when you go to check them out in the campaign or, through the acts. And I've heard people are finding divines, etc. But for me, I'm just printing a lot of like chaos orbs or scouring orbs, or just like basic currencies that I can use particularly early as well. There's a renown system that as you look at them, if you choose not to fight them, you go down in renown. If you fight them and beat them, you go up in renown. And so that's kind of a cool balance of not just like skipping them until you find an easy one that happens to have a mirror or something crazy in it. You got to kind of like upkeep the fights. Because of this forced version of like you need to fight them or else you actually are punished on it. Again, I would love that hotfix to come in to maybe hotfix 1 or 2 of the abilities. Again, I'm sure some people would just say this is a skill issue. You gotta, learn not to die. But there's legitimately something going on with a couple of abilities that will one tap you. And outside of that, like the rest of them are kind of okay. You just got to make sure, it is a skill issue at that point or a defensive issue. So mercenaries for me are super cool. They aren't necessarily like a mechanic, which I feel like you're like really juicing or something like that, like the Wildwood, etc. But it is a really cool addition to the game, and it was definitely something I did not expect, and I quite enjoy because of, like I said, the ability in SSF to get items that maybe otherwise were kind of difficult to run into. And so for me, the mercenaries are actually a W. One thing I also want to mention about these is the variety of these. Now, there's variety even in and of the types there are. There's 30 archetypes, so like there's a kinetic assist, or however you pronounce this right, and even within that, the support links that they have can be different between them. You can have ones with like gilded supports that are like rarer versions of it. So it's a little bit of like a catch your own Pokemon type of situation, and I am a massive Pokemon fan, so because of that, again, the like trying to catch them all thing is pretty cool. You can't really catch them all because you can only have 3 at a time, but there's also like infamous versions, you can call these shiny versions, whatever you want, which are rarer versions. And you can see they have like the gilded extra supports as well, which again are the stronger ones. And you can just see an example of kind of what you can do here with these, like consecrated ground. You've got some uniques on them, etc. You can, like the other one I had here, you can put things like, generating life, etc. for your party members. So, you can kind of find one that has a build you're interested in or fits the theme you're trying to do, or you just think is fun, God forbid, or has the aura you want, like haste or whatever, and you can just throw them in your party. You can find an infamous version of that. You can upgrade them, and you can take them down the line. Now, they don't upgrade with you, is the last thing I'll say about it. So because of that, you got to constantly kind of reclaim them as you go, which is a little bit of a bummer when you find one that you really like, and then you're like, oh, well, gotta let you go, little buddy. Like, I'm going to get the one that's 30 levels higher. But again, because they can be within 20 levels, and all I have a level 51, a level 30, I can use this guy in my party. And then I could be like, okay, what time to use the next one? And then at 48, I could use this one here, and I could put this crazy weapon on them or whatever. And then you have, an absolutely insane carry going on that will blast you through the campaign. So really good for leveling alts as well, particularly in SSF. Now, as you're going throughout the maps, you're going to run into this Egan fella here, and he is the one that's going to be able to open up maps for you that have the memory strand associated with it, where you're going to get like these pedo skills that you can actually use. I'll show you in the background here. And so effectively, it's just like a normal map, except you have the ability to like get Soul Ether, and you can steal something. Like there you go, like I can Soul Ether it up, or you can get, you know, kind of buff up the mobs in exchange for currency type thing. So I mean, you have these little like extra, you know, juicy mechanics. I'm sure it's, you know, better at the top end, and it feels, you know, more enjoyable at the top end if you're really juicing and you're really all that here. For like the average dude that's going through this, like it's just kind of cool. But really the thing that might stick out at you more is the new bosses, as well as the memory strands. Now there is a boss that's kind of like new and old. You end up fighting Cirrus at the end of these memory strands, and he's kind of like a tutorial version of Sirius. And if you beat him, it unlocks the ability for you to open up the, you know, the next moment at the end of the strand, which is one of the new pinnacle bosses. And let me tell you, these guys are tanky. So if you're a ZDPS build like I am, then you're absolutely going to get destroyed. Now, throughout the maps, they're going to drop these things called memory strands. This is almost like forging potential from Last Epoch, but just like pretty simple concept. It's very simple. If you change this item, then, you know, it uses the memory strand, just consumes it to, you know, basically make the items better. So let's say you use Chaos, if there's something like that, you can see the strand goes down a little bit, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe I want to scour this here. It's still 13, and now alchemy it, it's going to absorb it again. So when you're, you know, changing, adding, what have you with the affixes, when you're fucking with the item, it, you know, it absorbs that to make sure that you're actually making it better than it would have been without it, and that's all you really have to think about. Pretty nice again for SSF. It kind of reminds me a bit of ROG in the way where, you know, you can use it to like upgrade the tiers of an item, etc. This is actually like a pretty cool mechanic. You do access this stuff like sort of later in the league. You have to be running like a tier 14 or higher maps. You're not immediately engaging with the content because this sort of updated, you know, expansion is an expansion more to Endgame, and the Mercenary League is more of the league mechanic, which you do access immediately. So there is kind of a nice yin and yang of like content that you're immediately using and accessing, and like you can take a Mercenary from like, you know, the mud flats right in the start of the game. You can get a Mercenary and use them, you know, throughout the campaign if you want. You're constantly upgrading your campaign. Mercenary, and then by the time you get to tier 14s, then there's new stuff to do, and then by the time your build's getting strong enough, now you're doing like the new tier 16 bosses. So like this is actually like a pretty thorough update in terms of content throughout the, you know, timeline of your character. Now, before the launch here, I was watching and we were speculating as to if it was going to break its all-time peak record. In the launch of the last league, which again would have been 11 months ago, I believe it was, for Settlers League, I think July, this would have been the 229,000 peak. Now, on the launch of this, it was 179,000. It launched on Friday, and typically the way these work, if you look at any ARPG graph, is it goes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then on typically the Sunday after the launch is when you see the peak, and then it sort of decays from there with these ARPG launches. So when I saw 180,000, a lot of these people were in queue before the game even launched, then I was like, oh, wow, this is probably going to break their current record. But we had, you know, and you can see here Sunday was higher than Saturday. But it's quite a drop off into the weekend, and then we'll see like if it's going to continue the drop off from here. I think this is more a representation of two things when we're looking at this graph. I think first of all, as the mixed reviews would currently show you, if you look at these on Steam, it is a very rough connection issue, and because I think we have a lot of people that tried Path of Exile 2 for the first time and then decided to go and play it on Path of Exile, go try Path of Exile 1. You know, it's their first time playing the game. They haven't been committed for 10 years. And so once they play the game and the game is just like kind of disconnecting them all the time, or they're running issues, or they get their first rollback, or maybe they're from EU or something, and they're on, you know, they're having more server issues than other people, then they're just going to go play something else because they were trying something new, and they're gonna be like, well, I play the newer one, I don't play the older one, etc. So I think some of this is a representation of that. I think some of this is a representation of you know, there's Father's Day on Sunday in the U.S., etc. Maybe affected it a little bit. I will be curious to see how much this actually drops off because the additions to the game I thought were quite good, but in terms of actual player count, this wasn't as high as I actually thought it was going to be. Now, this was my very first death here, and that was because, there it is. I got one shot there. And if you actually slow this down, take it frame by frame, you'll see I had 21 fortification. I think it was like 2 endurance charges and 5,000 health, when that was not enough to get, survive the bashing with the shield charge. And like I was saying, it's a travel skill, and there is some kind of guess here. Ziggy D was saying he thinks maybe they didn't balance the travel skills in particular, and for PvP, so they're kind of just one-shotting people. Like the Flame Dash Burning Ground apparently is doing a very similar type of situation, so that could be sort of what's going on. So that could also be maybe a representation of it. Maybe people were getting one shot by mercenaries and not playing as much, or that could be something that's affecting reviews, etc. But that is effectively where my first impressions are. It's not an in-depth review analysis. Like I say, it's only the weekend going into the Monday here, but I will be live now to continue the game, to push through, to go more into the pinnacle bosses, and then kind of have a more thorough experience of it. Overall, I'm very enjoying it, and if you're having connection issues, hopefully these get resolved somewhat soon. Let me know what you're thinking about it. Also, I'm going to be live now. There are free cosmetics you can get just by watching the Twitch live stream. I'll have a link down below if you care to join me today. And overall, that's about it. I'm having a fairly good time.